Ever hear the story about the monster that wiped out a whole family? They call it the slug-headed specter, and it was a walking nightmare. It's the kind of horror story that usually ends with a lot of blood and no survivors. But this particular tale has a twist that nobody saw coming. A few days after the massacre, the monster's head was found pinned to the village gate. It was a gruesome public display for everyone to see. Turns out the one who took it down was the family's 10-year-old son, the only survivor. Now the rumors are flying that the kid isn't even human. In a quiet village tucked away in the mountains, things are far from peaceful. All eyes are on one specific house. The specter's head is still rotting on that bamboo pole. Mongrione, a professional specter hunter, arrives to see what all the fuss is about. She looks at the mangled head and actually feels a bit bad for the monster. The villagers are terrified, begging her to kill the boy because they think he's a demon in disguise. They're convinced a 10-year-old shouldn't be capable of such violence. Mongrione knows how tough these specters are, and the way this one was displayed is brutal. She pushes open the gate to find the kid for herself. She finds him sitting alone in the dirt between two fresh burial mounds. Covered in blood and grime, Issei looks up and asks who she is. She introduces herself as a specter hunter, but the boy barely reacts. Mongrione looms over him, taking in the scene. This tiny, broken kid is the one the entire village is scared of. She notices his eyes are completely hollow, like there's no life left in them. She doesn't want to judge him too quickly, though. Looking at his raw, dirty hands, it's obvious he dug those graves himself. He hasn't had anything to eat or drink for a long time. She sets a bucket of steaming porridge down in front of him. Issei looks at the food, confused about why she's helping him. He figures she was hired by the villagers to come and finish him off. Issei knows the people here hate him and find his lifeless stare creepy. Now that he's actually killed one of the monsters they fear, they just want him gone. Mongrione just hums, watching him closely. She sits down and asks him to tell her exactly how a kid managed to slay a specter. A sudden memory of the attack flashes back, full of screams and blood. Issei had to hide in the shadows while the monster tore through his home. He watched the whole thing through a tiny crack in the door. His eyes were wide with a mix of terror and something much darker. When the blood splattered across his hiding spot, something inside him snapped. Later, he armed himself with a sharpened bamboo pole. He tracked the beast back to its lair and drove that stake right through its head. He explains how he survived by hiding in a swamp and then followed the monster home. He even sold everything his family owned just to buy info on the beast's weakness and get his revenge. Mongrione asks the kid why he went through the trouble of putting the monster's head on public display. Issei doesn't flinch. He just wanted to give the specter the exact same treatment it gave his family. Mongrione can tell he isn't lying. She looks at his makeshift weapon. Usually, it takes a team of professional hunters with salt-filled spears to kill something like a tiled-head scholar. She's genuinely impressed by his tenacity. To plan a revenge like that right after witnessing his family's death takes a special kind of mind. In her eyes, he isn't just a survivor. He's a natural-born specter hunter. Issei looks defeated, though. He says his revenge is complete, and he doesn't have a single reason left to live. All he wants to do is die quietly right here, next to the family he just buried. Mongrione suddenly reaches out and gives him a firm tap on the forehead. She realizes she hasn't even asked for his name yet. When he tells her it's Issei, she smiles, saying it's a good name that means changing world. She asks if he really thinks displaying one head was enough to call it a fair trade for what he lost. She challenges him, asking if he's really satisfied with killing just one monster when his entire world was taken. He doesn't answer, just staring at the bucket of porridge she left for him. She tells him the request to kill him is officially canceled because he's clearly human. She gives him a final farewell and walks away. Issei stays silent as she heads out of the gate. Outside, the villagers are waiting. When she tells them she's done, they lose their minds. They scream at her, demanding she finish off the monster child. She just looks them in the eye and tells them the boy is human. They even try to offer her more money, but she's had enough. She asks why they're so dead set on having a kid who's already lost everything. One of the villagers yells about the boy's creepy eyes, convinced he's going to bring ruin to the whole village. Mongrion doesn't hold back. She tells them they're the ones acting like the actual monsters. She warns them that holding on to this much hatred and evil karma will only end up attracting real specters. The villagers aren't listening. They're convinced the boy is the bait that brings the monsters. Mongrion sighs and reaches for her hat. She pulls it back just enough to reveal a single, sharp horn on her head. Her voice goes cold. She tells them if they touch that boy again, they'll have to deal with her personally. And that's when she drops the truth. She's a dakibai. The village elder stumbles back in terror, screaming about a specter. She corrects him. She's a dakibai, part of an alliance with humans to hunt down real monsters. Since they aren't listening, she cancels the request and leaves. As she walks off into the sunset, the villagers are left shaking in fear. The elder looks like he's about to have a heart attack. They have no idea what to do now that their hunter has abandoned them. But their fear quickly turns into a desperate kind of madness. They decide that if the hunter won't help, they'll have to protect the village with their own hands. Their eyes are wild. Night eventually falls over the mountain village. But the quiet doesn't last long as clouds gather. Suddenly, sparks start flying in the dark. The villagers have returned, and this time they've brought torches and pitchforks. They're laughing like lunatics, convinced that burning the place down was what they should have done from the start. They set the burial mounds on fire, hoping that if they burn his home, the monster will finally be forced to leave. Ise desperately tries to put it out. Ise screams no, as they torch his family's final resting place. But suddenly, a terrifying face appears in the purple flames. It's the tiled-head scholar, laughing as he tells everything to burn. A massive glowing eye opens up in the darkness behind him. The scholar emerges from the shadows, commanding his spirits to burn the entire world to ashes. Towering over the village is the giant multi-eyed specter, wreathed in purple spiritual fire. It lets out a horrific roar, screaming for everything to burn down. Ise looks tiny compared to the monster. Ise stares up in pure shock as the village is engulfed in spiritual flames. The giant multi-eyed specter roars, its mouth filled with rows of jagged teeth as purple energy crackles around it. A projectile shaped like a flaming purple skull screams through the air toward the boy. Ise can only watch, frozen, as the spectral blast closes in on him. The impact is massive, sending a shockwave through the ground and blowing Ise backward. He tumbles through the air, completely overwhelmed by the force of the explosion. He hits the ground hard, his body battered and covered in fresh wounds from the debris. Through his blurred vision, he sees the flames consuming his family's graves. Everything he cared about is being erased. He struggles to push himself up, his hands trembling as they dig into the dirt. Another specter, the lanky tiled-head scholar, floats nearby, surrounded by smaller spirits. These monsters didn't just take his family. They're even trying to steal the ground where his parents were laid to rest. The scholar laughs hysterically, his red eyes glowing with sadistic glee at the boy's suffering. One of the spirits lunges at him, its face a distorted mask of pure hate. Ise gripped a broken hatchet, feeling the crushing weight of his own helplessness. He lashed out at the demonized villagers as if he had absolutely nothing left to lose. But as the spirits circle him, he realizes there's still something they can take, his pride and his life. Suddenly, Mongrion's voice cuts through the chaos, her face still hidden beneath her wide hat. She asks if he really thinks displaying one head was enough to call it a fair trade for his family. Ise grits his teeth, the anger flaring up inside him once more as he faces the scholar. The spectral energy around him intensifies, a whirlpool of violet fire. The scholar lunges forward, his hands claws of pure darkness ready to tear the child apart. He mocks the boy, telling him he's lost his family, his will to live, and everything else. So how can you be satisfied with killing just one specter? He sneers. The giant multi-eyed specter looms in the background, a mountain of muscle and malice. It grins, exposing a horrifying mouth as it prepares to finish the boy off once and for all. Just as the monsters close in, a flash of movement disrupts the scene. The spiritual pressure is suddenly suppressed by a far greater power that arrives in a flash of light. Issei looks up, a new realization dawning behind his bloodshot eyes. His revenge isn't over. It only ends when every single one of these things is wiped from the earth. He reaches out into the smoke, his hand bloodied and raw. He's reaching for anything to hold on to, but his strength is finally failing him. Suddenly, a strong hand catches his, pulling him back from the brink of the inferno. A foot plants firmly on the ground, shattering the stone beneath it with incredible force. Mongryone intervened. With just a single stomp, all the specters surrounding the boy were completely obliterated. The scholar stares in genuine surprise as his prey is snatched away. Mongryone looks down at Issei, her expression unreadable behind her veil. She's impressed. Most adults would have crumbled, but this child stood his ground against a literal giant. She turns her gaze toward the villagers, her crimson eyes burning with contempt. She tells them they are pathetic compared to the boy they were so eager to persecute. She explains the nature of their world. Evil karma and grudges create the very energy that draws these monsters. By hatting the boy and burning his home, they practically invited the tiled-head scholar to their doorstep. With a flick of her hand, she unleashes a devastating wave of energy that tears through the specters. The explosion of power is absolute, signaling the end of the monster's feast. A close-up of the giant multi-eyed specter's jagged teeth as it is struck by a powerful force. The massive monster roars in agony as purple energy crackles and erupts across its entire body. Mongryone stands tall as her spiritual power shreds the giant specter into pieces. Issei lies battered and unconscious at her feet. A close-up of Issei's blood-stained face. He clings to the thought of exterminating every last specter. Mongryone looks down at the boy with interest. She respects his grim resolve and calls it a fine choice. She reaches down to pick up the broken child, promising that better days will come if he survives as an avenging demon. Mongryone walks away from the burning village gates with Issei in her arms, deciding to take him under her wing. A butterfly flutters peacefully over a quiet courtyard, far away from the carnage of the village. The orange-winged butterfly flutters past Mongryone's long indigo hair as she watches over her guest. Issei lies in a clean room, his head and torso wrapped in bandages. A butterfly rests on the shoulder of the woman sitting nearby. The boy groans softly as he begins to regain consciousness in the unfamiliar surroundings. Mongryone, now without her hat and revealing the single white horn on her forehead, asks if he is awake. She introduces herself as Mongryone, a specter hunter, while the butterfly flutters near her finger. Issei looks at her with wide, tired eyes. She tells him he can resent her for saving him on a whim if he chooses. The memory of the giant multi-eyed specter being consumed by purple spiritual fire flashes through Issei's mind. He remembers the terrifying monster being completely vaporized by the woman's overwhelming power. He recalls the sight of the burning village gate and the lone figure standing against the sunset. Issei realizes with a heavy heart that it wasn't a dream. His family's graves are ruined and his old life is gone. He examines his arm, shocked to find that not even a single burn scar remains after being treated. He thanks Mongryone for taking care of him. She is surprised by how calm he is, despite knowing she is a dakibai. Issei explains that she treated him with kindness and isn't a specter, so her race doesn't matter to him. Mongryone smiles at his lack of prejudice. She asks to confirm his name. Issei looks up and answers her simply. Mongryone sits across from him and asks if he's considered her offer to follow her and learn exorcism arts. She offers him a place to live and the strength for revenge. Issei's gaze narrows. The offer sounds almost too good to be true. Mongryone is clearly impressed. She tells Issei to get ready if he's actually planning on coming along. Their destination is the Dakibai realm, a harsh land where ghosts with demonic energy thrive. She doesn't sugarcoat it. Her training is going to be absolute hell. Issei just stares back, that one word echoing in his head. But the kid doesn't flinch. If hell is what it takes to wipe out every specter in existence, he's all in. Mongryone just smirks, looks like she's found her student. Seeing that cold resolve in a 10-year-old's eyes is more than enough to convince her. First things first, food. He needs to get his strength back before they can go anywhere. He reaches for the bowl, finally showing a bit of life. She watches him eat, making sure he doesn't leave a single scrap this time. After a quick meal, it's time to move out. They head deep into the misty mountains, far from the world of men. Mongrion leads him past a sacred rope boundary. She warns him that if he steps outside it, he'll never find his way back in. They keep walking, leaving the familiar world behind. They stop in front of a massive gate. This is the Ghost Guardian Temple. It's a place forbidden to humans, guarded by spirits and hidden from the eyes of the living. Issei looks up, feeling the weight of the place. He asks if a human being here is even allowed. Mongrion just gives him a sidelong glance. She finds it funny that a kid in his position is actually worried about her getting into trouble. She pushes the heavy wood open. She's the chief here, nobody is going to dare question her. Issei's eyes go wide as the doors creak open. He didn't realize his new mentor was the boss. The view inside is incredible. It's a massive city of temples and cherry blossoms hidden high in the peaks. She asks him what he thinks. To a village kid like Issei, it looks like another world entirely. He scans the crowds below, realizing every single person down there is a dakibai. It doesn't take long for the locals to notice the scrawny human standing at their front gate. Some of the younger dakibis, like Ilchwi, aren't exactly thrilled to see a human intruder. Mongrion doesn't waste time. She shouts for everyone to listen up. She introduces Issei to the whole temple, declaring him her student and family. The announcement sends a ripple through the crowd. But if the chief says he stays, he stays. The residents seem happy enough to welcome a new family member. Issei is stunned. One word from her was all it took for everyone to fall in line. He looks at her differently now. She's way more influential than she lets on. She figures that's enough of a welcome party. She leads him straight to a feast. Apparently, the secret to hunting monsters starts with a full stomach. The chef brings out a mountain of food, and Mongrion tells him to focus on the meat. Issei looks at the spread, confused. He doesn't see what stuffing his face has to do with killing specters. She taps him on the head, telling him he's got a major hurdle to clear first. He's still a growing kid. His main duty right now is eating and sleeping. If he doesn't build a proper foundation now, he'll deeply regret it when he becomes a hunter. If it's for revenge, Issei will do it. He starts shoveling food in with total focus. He's going at it like he hasn't eaten in weeks, which isn't far from the truth. Suddenly, someone's voice calls out to the chief. Gonga bounds back into the room, grinning ear to ear. "I brought more meat," she shouts, holding up a fresh platter. Mongrion watches for a moment before turning away. She tells Gonga to show Issei to his room once he's finally finished eating. Her final instruction is simple. Make sure the kid cleans the entire plate. Issei looks like he's about to burst. He's starting to think this meal is its own special kind of hell. Gonga introduces herself, even poking at Issei's head to see if there are any horns hidden there. She asks him how old he is. When he says he's 10, she's floored. She's 22 and thinks Issei looks way more mature than she does. An older dakibai explains that humans age twice as fast as their kind. So technically, Gonga is only a single year older than Issei. Gonga doesn't care about the math. She's just happy to be a big sister now. Issei just stares back blankly. The old woman tells Gonga to take good care of the new family member. Issei remains silent, his eyes as hollow as ever. His stomach is actually bulging from the sheer amount of food he just packed away. As they walk through the temple grounds, Issei is clutching his gut. Gonga just laughs, saying a young body like his will digest it in no time. She tells him how lucky he is. The other dakibis are going to be incredibly jealous that the chief is teaching him personally. Gonga explains that Mongrion is a legend who's been hunting specters for 3 centuries. She's supposedly stronger than everyone else in the temple combined. 300 years. Issei just looks at the sky, absorbing the information. He glances at Gonga as she talks. Despite her age, he thinks they don't really look that different from humans. Seeing her laugh, Issei feels a strange warmth. It's a feeling he never once got from the people in his old village. But the moment is broken when a voice calls out from across the courtyard. demanding to see the human. They turn around to find a group of Dakibus blocking their path. A blue-skinned boy named Ilchhwi steps forward, cracking his knuckles. He says they should have a little chat. Gonga's expression shifts to worry, as she recognizes Ilchhwi and his crew immediately. Issa just watches them. He's seen this look before. They're exactly like the bullies he knew back home. The sunset dyes the mountains a deep orange as the tension rises. Ilchhwi's group grabs Gonga and pushes her aside while she screams at them to stop. Issa could only stand there, swaying precariously in the frame. He was enduring heavy, brutal blows, and blood had already begun to stain the stone floor. They drag him to the sparring grounds. Ilchhwi claims it's just a normal spar, ignoring Gonga's warnings about the chief. He tells Issei he's just showing him his place, so he doesn't get himself killed by a real specter later on. He's disappointed by how weak Issei is. It barely even counts as a fight to him. Ilchhwi can't understand why the chief would waste time on a human instead of someone like him. Issei slowly looks up, realization finally dawning on him. So, this was supposed to be a spar. He actually apologizes. He says he thought they were just bullying him, so he didn't realize he was supposed to be fighting back. Gonga and the others look on in disbelief. Issei explains he was just taking the hits because he's a guest, and he feels bad for ruining their training. Ilchhwi's face turns dark with rage. The kid's apology feels like an insult. He slams a brutal punch directly into Issei's face. The assault continues. He calls Issei a weak human and asks what he'll do if he stops taking it. Ilchhwi is fuming now, convinced Issei is only being cocky because he's holding back from killing him. A series of heavy thuds echo through the air as Issei takes more punishment. Ilchhwi stares at him, frustrated. He's beating the kid to a pulp, but he isn't getting any satisfaction from it. He realizes Issei isn't even closing his eyes when the punches land. He's just staring right through the pain. Despite the blood, Issei is completely focused. He's watching the movements and calmly notes that Ilchhwi's attacks have a clear pattern. Ilchhwi pauses, confused by the kid's empty gaze. Even the bystanders are starting to get nervous. Suddenly, Issei's expression hardened. He began to move, his eyes locked onto the rhythm of the next attack. Ilchhwi's eyes widen in genuine surprise as he sees Issei actually moving to retaliate. Issei lunges forward, catching the Dakibai off guard for a split second with a countermove. The impact didn't actually land, as Issei stopped his punch right in front of the bully's face. But that alone was enough to send Ilchhwi stumbling back. He never expected this human kid to still have any fight left in him. Ilchhwi fell backward, completely caught off guard. With blood trickling from his mouth, Issei realized his endurance was still far too low. He remembered the chief's words. Without enough food, he lacked the strength to sustain a real fight. Still, he walks toward Ilchhwi, telling him that even if he looks weak, he'd prefer it if the blue-skinned boy didn't hold back anymore. He stares Ilchhwi down with those empty eyes. He explains that in a real encounter, a specter wouldn't show a single shred of mercy. "Let's spar again next time," Issei says, his face battered but his resolve completely unbroken. The sun sets fully over the mountains, leaving the ghost guardian temple shrouded in the quiet of the night. Inside the main hall, Mongryone stands in silence, her expression unreadable as she waits. Issei is a complete mess. His face is swollen and bruised, a painful souvenir from his very first day in the temple. Mongryone mentions that Gonga already told her everything. She asks if Ilchhwi was bullying him, but Issei just calls it a simple spar. She sighs and tells him to come get healed. She hovers her hand over his bruised arm, and a soft green glow begins to knit his skin back together. Issei recognizes the magic. It's the same energy he felt when he was first burned. Mongryone tells him that fighting is just how kids grow, but he needs to find her if things ever get out of hand. She asks if he managed to land a hit on Ilchhwi at least. Issei just tells her she doesn't need to worry about it. He admits that he didn't touch him once. He tells her he didn't want to cause any trouble since he's staying here as a guest. Mongryone suddenly grabs him by the face. lifting him off the floor with one hand while the healing light flares. When someone calls out for her from another room, she snaps back that she's busy dealing with an annoying brat's injuries. She tells Issei to stop acting like a guest. She introduced him as family, and he needs to start taking that to heart. Issei says he'll keep that in mind, but he clarifies that he didn't just take the beating because he felt out of place. He explains that against a serious opponent like Ilchwi, he simply wasn't fast enough to land a single blow. Mongrion agrees, nodding that Ilchwi is talented enough to hold his own against adults in a spar. Issei asks if that means Ilchwi is strong enough to actually hunt specters. Mongrion's gaze turns sharp. She tells him that if Ilchwi went out on a hunt right now, he would surely die. She points out the irony. Issei killed the tiled-head scholar but can't beat Ilchwi, yet Ilchwi is the one who wouldn't survive a real hunt. She explains that exorcism isn't just about strength. You need information to create a winning situation, just like how Issei used salt against the scholar. Brute force alone isn't enough to kill a monster. Ilchwi scoffs at the boy, claiming he's dead meat if he ever faces a real specter without literary knowledge. Issei knows the score. You need to master both scholarship and martial arts to actually practice exorcism. To get started, the boy is given his very first official task. He begins a grueling training routine, running until his legs give out. The physical toll is massive, but he keeps pushing his body past the limit every single day. His nights are spent buried in the library, poring over stacks of ancient scrolls. Eventually, Gong'a stops by to check on the human who never seems to take a break. She's been watching him for a week and thinks he must be bored out of his mind by now. Issei explains that he has no time to play. He needs to finish this to get the chief's permission. The girl looks at the endless shelves and realizes this task could literally take decades to finish. She'd rather die than read all that, but the boy insists he actually enjoys it. That's when she notices the wounds. If he's just reading and running, why is he covered in bruises? He reveals the second part of his training. He has to win a sparring match. A sparring match. The idea catches her completely off guard. Thud, the kid hits the floor again as another session ends poorly. Ilchwi is getting annoyed that his opponent keeps coming back for more daily beatdowns. He shouts that he never even agreed to spar with the human in the first place. Gong'a watches from the steps, finally understanding where all those injuries are coming from. She knows a human can't possibly beat a dakibai with raw strength alone. But the boy knows that in the real world, monsters won't wait for him to be ready. The blue dakibai stomps the ground in a fit of rage, shattering the stone beneath his foot. He warns the kid that if he challenges him again, he's going to stop holding back. Gong'a jumps in to shield Issei, telling the bully to stop scaring him. The fighter just scoffs and walks away, muttering about the human hiding behind a girl. The boy doesn't back down. He tells him to be ready for the next round. His rival doesn't even bother looking back. The whole temple starts to think the human kid has officially lost his mind. The group walks off, leaving the battered student alone in the courtyard. But he's far from finished, calling out to the warrior before he gets too far. He raises his hand and demands another spar, right then and there. Day after day, the result is the same. Issei gets knocked around the courtyard. The dakibai is baffled. The kid hasn't landed a single hit, yet he refuses to quit. As the seasons change, the training only gets more intense. The boy keeps at it, his clothes soaked in sweat as he hones his movements. The warrior starts to notice something strange. Issei's eyes aren't even watching him anymore. It's like he's looking through him, searching for something else entirely. The others watch as the tension between the two rivals continues to build. The boy strikes the training dummy with a new kind of precision and power. Ilchwi isn't just idling either. He's been hunting his own strength this entire time. He's got his own goals and people to impress, and he won't let a human get in his way. He clenches his teeth, determined to prove that their talents are on completely different levels. He's convinced that no matter how hard the kid tries, he'll never be able to land a real hit. 1 year passes in the blink of an eye. Another training session ends, but this time something feels different. Gonga and the others watch in total shock from the sidelines. Ilchwi touches his face, unable to believe what just happened. The human boy stares at his own fist, just as surprised as everyone else. For the first time in a year, a strike actually landed. He finally touched him. 1 year of losing, and he finally connected. The blue Dakibai tries to laugh it off, claiming he just slipped up by mistake. His ego is bruised, and he lunges forward with a murderous shout. He unleashes a flurry of attacks, desperate to regain his dominance. He's giving it his all, yet he can't seem to land a single blow. The boy weaves through the strikes, as if he already knows where they're going. Is realizes that the secret lies in combining scholarship with martial arts. Most specters have bodies that humans can never match through raw effort. To close that gap, you need something more than just physical strength. The key to overcoming those limits is what the temple calls literary knowledge. The boy has spent his nights studying the anatomy of specters and humans alike. He ducks under a massive punch, moving with newfound confidence. When you know where the vitals are, the impossible suddenly becomes possible. But all that knowledge is useless if your attacks can't actually reach the target. That's why he spent his days building up his martial prowess. He steps in and delivers a rapid series of strikes to the warrior's chest. By hunting both his mind and body, he's finally learned how to hunt. An uppercut connects, sending the blue Dakibai flying into the air. The witnesses are stunned into silence by the sheer impossibility of what they just saw. Gonga can barely process that the human she was worried about won so decisively. The bully lies flat on his back, completely defeated in under a year. The sun shines over the temple as a new era begins for the young student. Gonga can't stop praising him as they walk through the village. They run into Manhwa, who is dressed for travel and surrounded by her hunters. The chief looks down at her student with her usual stern but calm expression. She reveals that she'll be away for a few days on a regular expedition. To keep the peace with humans, she helps hunt down specters that are causing trouble. It's the same duty she was performing when she first found the boy a year ago. Gonga is eager to share the big news about the human's victory in the spar. Issa stays quiet as the girl enthusiastically tells the chief everything. Suddenly, Ilchwi appears and puts a friendly arm around the kid's shoulders. He admits he lost and promises to work even harder next time. The human kid is immediately suspicious. Why is he acting so nice all of a sudden? Manhwa is happy to see them getting along, thinking they've finally bonded. She praises the fighter for showing maturity by acknowledging his younger brother. The Dakibai just laughs, but Gonga can tell something is very wrong. The chief tells them to behave while she's away, but she has no idea what they're planning. Gojil is happy to see everyone getting along, thinking the rivalry is finally over. He asks the green-haired boy how long they've been friends, surprised by the sudden closeness. Gojil admits he only kept his distance because he thought Ilchwi hated the human. Ilchwi ignores him and invites Issei to hang out, making a show of being inclusive. Gonga wants to come too, but she's quickly told this is just for the brothers. The boy is touched by the gesture, truly believing he's being accepted at last. Night falls over the village, and a plan is set into motion under the full moon. They meet at a secluded building on the outskirts of the temple grounds. The heavy lock on the door is tampered with, granting them access to forbidden equipment. The armory is filled with weapons that the children are strictly forbidden from touching. Issei is nervous, asking if they're really allowed to be there. He notices that the blue-skinned teen has gone back to calling him human instead of his name. The bully declares that they'll settle their score with a specter hunting contest. Issei reminds them of the chief's orders. No one leaves the temple until they're adults. Gojil is already trying on a helmet, completely caught up in the excitement. The human boy keeps protesting, sensing that this is a recipe for disaster. He warns them that the woods are full of things far more dangerous than they realize. The teen scoffs at him, calling him a coward who thinks he's smart just because he reads. He grabs his mace and tells the boy to stay behind if he's too scared to follow. The other Dakibus are easily swayed by the call to adventure and glory. They leave the armory with a sense of misguided purpose, leaving Issei with a difficult choice. The human boy stares after them, knowing he can't let them go out alone. The dark, dense forest looms ahead of them as they step beyond the temple's protection. Ilchwi feels unstoppable with his iron mace, bragging about the ghosts he'll smash. They see this as a rite of passage, a shortcut to becoming real hunters. The leader of the group smirks, convinced he's finally found a way to win. He mocks Issei for choosing a simple hand axe, thinking it's a weak and useless weapon. Deep down, the bully is thrilled to see the human looking so terrified. He remembers touching a specter corpse as a child, and thinks that makes him an expert. He's determined to prove there's a gap in their abilities that effort can never bridge. Issei follows closely, his mind racing with everything he's learned from his books. He knows that a child ghost is usually a minor nuisance, but something feels off. He watches the trees, his senses on high alert for any sign of movement. The worst-case scenario is that the crying isn't coming from a child ghost at all. A haunting, distorted wail echoes through the woods, freezing them in their tracks. The sound is unnatural, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. From the shadows, a multi-faced dragon horse emerges, its many faces screaming. The massive beast is a nightmare of fused flesh and hundreds of red-eyed heads. The children are still unaware that the predator is closing in on them. Ilchwi's aggression faded as the night grew increasingly silent. They came looking for a weak ghost, but they've found something that could kill them all. Ilchwi is furious, shouting that if Issei wants to go back, he should go alone while Waljang tries to restrain him. Issei speaks humbly, trying to de-escalate the tension after their training session. Issei points out that his victory in their previous spar was merely a fluke of timing and luck. He reminds Ilchwi that a prepared opponent would never have been caught by such a simple move. Issei continues to heap praise on the blue-skinned boy's natural talent and superior physical strength. Ilchwi's anger melts into arrogance as he basks in the human's apparent admiration of his greatness. Under the moonlight, Ilchwi makes a grand gesture, inviting Issei to join their group of sworn brothers. Issei beams with genuine joy, his eyes sparkling at the thought of finally finding a family and an older brother. The sincerity of the human's happiness leaves Ilchwi feeling uncharacteristically flustered and awkward. Suddenly, a sound from the depths of the forest breaks the brief moment of bonding. A thin, wailing cry drifts through the trees, sounding exactly like a lost infant in the dark. Thinking he's found easy prey to prove himself, Ilchwi charges toward the sound with his mace. He wants to impress his new little brother by taking down the specter single-handedly. But the cry shifts, becoming a discordant screech that vibrates with an ancient, hungry malice. In the darkness, a horrific visage looms, far larger and more terrifying than any common ghost. Waljang struggles to keep up, his instincts screaming that they are in far over their heads. He asks if they are truly sure about the identity of the specter they are hunting. The crying is revealed to be a lure coming from the massive, fanged maws of a nightmare. A pale, eyeless face gazes out from the monster's shifting, necrotic gray skin. Dozens of other heads emerge from the beast, each one twisted into a different expression of agony. Issei recognizes the overwhelming threat and shouts a desperate warning for everyone to run. The multi-faced dragon horse fully reveals its grotesque form, lashing out with sharp, spear-like limbs. Before the children could even process what was happening, the monster unleashed a barrage of sharp spikes toward them. The beast's appendages strike with terrifying speed, cutting through the forest as it begins its hunt. Gojil doesn't even see it coming. A sudden strike sends him flying through the air. Issei manages to get his shield up just in time, but the impact rattles his entire frame. The sheer shock of the ambush is visible in his eyes. Waljang screams as the horror unfolds right in front of him. Ilchwi is frozen in terror, watching the beast gore their companion. Gojil hits the ground hard, gasping for air through the pain. The group is scattered, and the monster is already looming over its prey. The survival rate against these things is a joke. Low-level specters are manageable, but the scale changes once you go higher. For a level 7, you've only got a 70% chance of making it. But when it hits level 6, the odds drop off a cliff. An apprentice hunter has maybe a 20% chance against a multi-faced dragon horse. And that's the thing they're currently staring down. Issei realizes they're in the worst possible situation. Even official hunters struggle with these odds, and they aren't even close to that level yet. At this rate, none of them are making it out of the forest alive. He has to think fast and make the only choice that matters. Gojil groans in agony on the forest floor. The sight is more gruesome than any of the stories ILCHWI had ever told. ILCHWI is breaking down, realizing his suggestion led them into this trap. Blood continues to pour from the fatal wound in Gojil's chest. If they don't get him help now, he's dead, but help is miles away. The panic is completely taking over, leaving them paralyzed. Issei knows they can't outrun the monster while carrying a dying man. The only way for the rest of them to survive is to leave him. He stands up and delivers the cold truth to the others. ILCHWI can't believe what he's hearing. Issei doesn't flinch. Gojil is already a lost cause. ILCHWI screams at him, calling it a betrayal, but Issei keeps walking. He points out that the beast isn't attacking yet for a reason. According to the texts, this specter finds prey filled with negative emotions the most delicious. It's waiting for them to make a choice that will break them. If they abandon their friend, Gojil will die in despair and they'll be consumed by guilt. The monster wants them to suffer before it finishes them off. But Issei chooses survival over sentiment. Gojil is still begging for his life, not wanting to believe he's been left. He watches the hundred-faced beast close in on him. The screams of the absorbed faces echo through the dark forest. The horror of the moment is etched into their minds forever. Issei turns and runs, focusing only on the path ahead. The beast remains behind, claiming its latest prize in the darkness. Issei sets off a flash bomb as a last-ditch distraction. A massive burst of light floods the clearing, blinding the monster for a split second. Blood stains their hands as the weight of the moment sets in. Gojil's body blurred into the light. Issei whispers a final apology, knowing he's leaving his friend to die. The explosion echoes through the forest, masking the sound of their escape. Thick smoke begins to roll through the trees. They take the opening and sprint into the darkness. Waljang is gasping for air, his face covered in grime and blood. ILCHWI is a sobbing mess, unable to process the cruelty of the choice. Behind them, Gojil is left alone to face the end. The survivors don't slow down, pushing their bodies to the limit. ILCHWI looks back one last time, his heart breaking for the friend they left behind. Gojil slumps back, whispering that it's for the best as long as they survive. He tells them to live, his final words a selfless plea for their safety. Then the nightmare looms over him, a mountain of teeth and eyes. The multi-faced dragon horse is a mass of fused skin and pure agony. Issei watches from the shadows, his eyes wide as the slaughter begins. The beast strikes with terrifying speed. Its massive maw opens wide, ready to consume its prey. The creature's skin begins to ripple and stretch in a sickening display. A new shape starts to push through the monster's grotesque flesh. Gojil's face emerges from the beast's side, screaming in a voice full of redirected hate. Issei is frozen in place, paralyzed by the horror of the transformation. The monster gains a new voice, and it's already promising to come for its sworn brothers soon.